Hello, everyone. This is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and we are rounding out our series on ADHD. Thank you so much for your feedback and your listenership and watching these videos as we're learning and growing. This video is about 5 difficulties that individuals who have ADHD do usually have challenges with, and that's not really like connected to their symptoms, but a byproduct of their symptoms that they have. And so we'll talk about it and kind of talk about how we get there. So let's do it. Let's just jump off. Number 1, relationships. Making and maintaining relationships is very, very challenging for an individual who has ADHD, especially as a child, and it kind of moves on into adulthood. So ADHD is a neurological disorder and also can be viewed, in some people's opinions, that it is also a developmental disorder. Not like an intellectual disorder where someone has like a cognitive impairment, but a developmental disorder in a way that someone who has ADHD seems like younger than their peers, and so that often makes it hard for them to engage socially in school settings. And so it's hard for them. They may be seen as immature or childish to their peers. They may be playing with dolls and like maybe still in an age like, or teddy bears, as like a middle schooler, or where other kids their age are like, you still play with dolls, like, so they kind of, not the judgment, I'm not judging them, but like that's the face that children, unfortunately, in middle school and high school make when they're greeted with a peer that they are like, this behavior is something that is a little odd to me, and they're not welcoming, and they're like, oh, you have ADHD and that's why you're doing this, and that's okay. I accept you for who you are. Maybe in a few years, or we keep working at this, that could be a way that people do engage, or children do engage. We'll keep learning at that. And then also, one of the things that does happen too is so we're talking about flexible thinking, right? So that is an executive functioning skill that is compromised for someone who has ADHD, and so their brain is more rigid thinking, and so that can also get in the way of relationships. They might be more rigid, have feeling like their friends have to be in this box, have to behave in this certain way, and people, we know we don't fit in boxes. That's not how we're made. We're very complex. Some days we act like this, some days we act like this, and it's like, depending on our mood, we act. And so that may be harder for someone with ADHD to navigate and accept, and so it's challenging for them to again make friends and maintain friends. Okay. Number 2, driving. Driving is something that is I won't say challenging for someone with ADHD. They might be able to drive and develop the skill. Someone with ADHD, not that they again have difficulties with driving, they may have difficulties with driving. That may be a case with just managing the anxiety, how they have internalized themselves. So if you think about it, someone who has ADHD typically is just more accident prone, okay, just because they don't pay close attention to details, and they make mistakes easily, just because that is just how their brain works, okay? And so if they have internalized this, then driving and pretty much doing a lot of things that take a lot of skill and take a lot of concentration, and you think about you're driving, you're putting, that's a huge safety, there's a lot of safety precautions and things that goes into that, and so that's putting a lot of pressure on them, and so it may be really hard for them to learn how to drive. But if they feel, courageous and they're able to do it, some of the things that might get in the way for an individual with ADHD with learning how to drive is one, just being mindful when they're driving, not being distracted. We're talking about someone who has difficulty the attending. And so you think about it, driving sometimes is not the most engaging thing, depending on what's happening on the road, especially long trips or things like that. Or if you're just driving, or it's it's bumper to bumper traffic. It's not the most like engaging thing. So someone might be more distracted and like pick up their phone, or they might just kind of even be inattentive in their mind, like just go somewhere else instead of being on the road. And so they might cause them to make a mistake or get in an accident, things of that nature. The second thing is, if you're thinking about it as well, they have difficulty managing their emotions. And so they might be more prone to drive aggressively and be impatient with drivers. You think about it, they are impulsive. And so being impulsive, meaning you're a quick start. And if you're a quick start and people are not driving as fast as you would like, or they're in your way, you're gonna be impatient. And so you might drive and make impulsive decision that may not be the best in that moment because of just how your brain works, and so that would unfortunately put you in some pretty dangerous situations when driving. And so things to think about and when someone is learning how to drive, especially our teenagers, one, making sure and doing an assessment even for you as a parent to see if you feel like your child is able to be mindful on the road and take in those safety precautions. Even though they reach the age of learning how to drive, they may not be ready mentally to learn how to drive. And also to help them to build the skills, to ways to be mindful, what to do when in situations where your emotions are heightened, and how to manage that and work through that as you're driving. So that's some ways that you can work through that. So not saying that people with ADHD cannot drive. That's not what I'm saying. There's definitely ways that you can work to build these skills, or even wait to develop till the brain has developed more, so that the person feels more confident in learning how to drive and using all of the executive functioning skills it takes to drive. So third one is healthy eating. So again, we're talking about someone who is impulsive, and we're talking about someone who has difficulty with their emotions. Okay, so our society is not prone to encouraging healthy eating. It's just not, and that's sad to say, but it's the truth. The food that is most quickly and easily accessible is the food that is unhealthy for us. And so if you're thinking about your impulsive eater, or you're emotionally eating, your body's going to crave the things that typically aren't best for you. Unfortunately, our society has kind of geared us to be really addicted to the sugary foods and things of that nature. So that's a lot of what can be in someone's diet. And then also biologically, the part of the brain that is sending a signal to your stomach that you are full oftentimes does not fire when a person has ADHD. So they tend to eat and overeat and not get full. It's not something that people typically talk about or even discuss the ADHD. It's not in the DSM anywhere. But it is a part of, again, we're talking about the part of the brain that has the executive functioning skill. And that's also the part of the brain that's saying, hey, I'm full. And if it doesn't get to that, then your body never gets that signal. The person will tend to be more prone to overeat. And so that's why having the medication can be helpful, because it can stimulate that brain. The message will get to the stomach, and that person won't overeat. So that is definitely a common challenge for someone with ADHD. Also, just helping to of course, educate food. I think a lot of the information that we get about food is not accurate at times, or we just don't get the right information. And so learning what healthy portion sizes are, what are some great foods that you can use if you're craving something sweet, and choosing some healthy options as well. So again, medication is not always the answer. I don't want you guys to get the perception that I'm preaching medication, because I am not. I'm just saying that can definitely be a helpful tool if you're open to it. But if you're not, we can definitely use some skills to help build healthy eating. And then to, of course, help you get to a space where you recognize when you're full as well. The fourth difficulty that individual with ADHD can have is sleep hygiene, having a healthy sleep hygiene. And you're like, sleep hygiene, what is that? What is sleep hygiene, Alicia? I know about, making sure you take care of your body, but sleep hygiene. So oftentimes there's two kind of polar opposites that happen when someone has difficulty sleeping or managing a healthy sleep hygiene. One is sleeping too much, or not being able to sleep at all. So typically individuals who are more inattentive type ADHD, and we talked about that in the first video. So inattentive type, they tend to oversleep. Their brain is just overwhelmed with taking in all of the things and all of the activity that's happening, and so it feels just drained. And so people with inattentive type tend to oversleep and feel tired and exhausted all the time. And so they tend to sleep too much, like sleeping during the day, if they have the traditional sleeping schedule. So they tend to sleep during the day and then not be able to sleep during the night all the way, and it messes up their circadian rhythm. And so finding a healthy rhythm for them to maintain sleep, and then to also do things to help give them energy during the daytime. It's really important. Now, the opposite side, not sleeping enough. So there may be the hyperactive type or combined type, and they are just restless. Their mind is going, their body just feels like, it hasn't burned enough energy. And so things are doing exercise and building a healthy sleep hygiene. That's where people do, you hear a lot of people talking about taking melatonin and things of that nature to help develop a great sleep hygiene, and also cutting off the blue light on your phone, doing yoga or meditation before you go to sleep, cutting off your TV, an hour before you go to sleep, or a half an hour before you go to sleep. Things of that nature can help you with building a healthy sleep hygiene, so that your mind can shut down and properly rest. And you're creating an environment that facilitates sleep so that you can rest. Perfect. All right. And the fifth difficulty that happens typically, and this one is typically when ADHD unfortunately is not treated, and we're talking about treated through therapy or medication, is substance use. Typically individuals who use substances, and the most common ones are alcohol and marijuana, to manage sleep, to kind of manage the things we were talking about, manage sleep, manage the restlessness, manage the thoughts, the overactive thoughts, kind of just to calm the mind, things of that nature. It will use these substances to do that, and then also unfortunately, oftentimes, especially in the inattentive type ADHD, anxiety is often like a byproduct of it, and so people do tend to use substances to calm anxieties, to make them feel more relaxed, and then unfortunately with alcohol, though, we know that alcohol is a depressant, right? So it's going to cause those symptoms, but then in addition, it will also cause, even though it soothes the anxiety at the beginning, it will increase the anxiety long term. So best to find some healthier ways to manage. Want to treat, if definitely in therapy, your ADHD if you have been diagnosed with it, or suspect that you have, to definitely do an initial evaluation, psychological, or to see a therapist to look into the matter more. But then also to find healthy ways to manage the things that you are medicating. So that is those 5 difficulties. So thank you so much for leaning in and learning about ADHD, or refreshing your memory about it. Again, if you're curious about it, I welcome curiosity. Diagnosing yourself on the internet, maybe not so much, but curiosity about it, I definitely welcome. And if you are curious and feel like maybe you or a loved one might have some of the symptoms or could benefit from some just learning ways to manage some of the things that we talked about. It doesn't have to be ADHD, like learning how to manage and maintain relationships, and not being emotionally or aggressive driver, learning some healthy eatings, trying to develop a sleep hygiene, trying not to use substances. Hey, talk to someone about it. It could only help. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. We have another series coming soon. I would love to tell you, but you would just have to watch and wait for it. So you should subscribe to my channel, share these wonderful videos that you're getting all this great information from, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.